This is Jay Stein, and you're listening to the Dynasty Hotseat.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen. I said ladies and gentlemen, Jay. There's no ladies watching. Gentlemen,
Oh,
hello,
come on.
everybody. Hi, maybe one, maybe my wife will be
There might be
watching
one.
at some stage, Yeah, exactly. We're back on the Dynasty Hot Seat, the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno. We've got one of my favorite guests of all time. It's rookie mock draft time, so we could not get Jay Stein from the Devi Royale on the show. Jay, great to see you again. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited. The football season to start. We're already talking about 2026 rookies. This is just so much fun to do and getting into here. Start looking here in middle of September. We're only a few weeks into the college season. We're
Yes.
starting this, so I'm so excited to be on the hot seat today.
Yeah, I thought I started in October last year, and I thought, yeah, that's far too late. Far too late. So we'll go September for this one and see how we get on. Jay, you're gonna run us through your top picks for this 2026 class. Before we do that, I'd like to welcome everyone to the channel. Please consider liking and subscribing as well. That would be great. Jay, before we get into your 1-1 and all that, a couple of quick notes maybe on what you think of the class in general right now, maybe.
Yeah, so I do this whole process where I go back and look at all the data from all of these players and sort of ramping up before the season even starts, and I put them out into tiers. And before we even started the season, just looking at what the priors were for these players, what draft capital is, weighing all those things into my process, this was a down class for me. Usually I put them in tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 based on this data. And I didn't have any tier 1 guys coming into this season and not as many as I usually see tier 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
So just let's start this off. Let's start this whole 2026 rookie class season off with that as the frame of reference, because all these profiles that we look at, they're gonna have little knocks on them that don't make them perfect. They're not going to be the guys that are the high end tier 1 guys for the 2026 class. So just keep that in mind. Secondly, there were a lot of high end quarterbacks coming into the season. If you go out and look at the mock draft databases, even right now, we're seeing quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the top 15 picks. That has not played out so far this season in terms of those guys, those particular guys performing well so far. And so because that's happening, I think we're going to have to kind of knock some of these quarterbacks where, in a class where you're unsure about a lot of these prospects, you might just kind of fill it with quarterbacks because those are kind of the higher upside guys. Right now, those quarterbacks, there's so much uncertainty, even with the high level guys, the guys that we think of as the higher end guys. There's so much uncertainty with those guys. Like I said, none of these prospects look that great. So those are some of my quick takeaways. Keep that in mind throughout this process. These profiles, we don't have very, very high end tier 1 profiles. And the quarterbacks who, a lot of times get stuffed into these drafts, I think we should look at them with a bit more skepticism. I think we should push them down a little bit further because what we've seen out of these guys, especially the high end guys, has not looked that great from a numbers perspective, at least starting out. Now, there's plenty of time. We're only sitting here in week 3, so there's plenty of time. And this mock draft is going to be sort of a marriage of two things. The first thing is what we've seen so far in 2025 in terms of what we've seen on the field, plus the priors. So you're going to see some mixed in here. Some guys that I thought were going to do really well that kind of started off cool, but maybe I'm kind of holding on hope to. And then there's some guys that were maybe not very high in my process, but have started off pretty hot on the season that I got to bump up and move up. And that's kind of where we are in the season. Maybe talk to me in a month or 2 months. I might be a little bit more firm on some of these guys, but right now it's kind of in that fluid process where you're kind of looking at what's going on now and versus what's happened in the past and, kind of what you've seen from these prospects over time.
Yeah, I absolutely love that you said that because at the end of the the first mock draft that we did for this 26 class with Phil over at the wildcard Devi team, at the end of the show, I kind of went, eh. You know, like I'm not like, I'm not. Yeah, right now I'm like I'm not. I don't love it, and I kind of felt a bit better about for a couple of years. I've been telling people to swap out the 26 picks for 27 ones. That could end up blowing up in my face if people do, end up coming along. We've seen people like Joe Burrow appear out of nowhere before and rise to a 1-1. I don't see it so far, but let's see what you've got, Jay. We'll start off as always at the 1-1 position for you right now. Obviously, this can change. But who's the 1-1 for you right now in a super flex draft?
It's Jordan Tyson. He is a wide receiver. This is his 4th year. He's playing for Arizona State. Quarterback's named Sam Levitt. He well, I'll give you a little breakdown. He's 6'1", 195 pounds, so fits kind of from a physical profile. This is year 4. There are injury concerns. He spent a year out of football with knee injury. And so, that is always on the realm of what, keep that in mind. It's not a perfect profile, but so far this year, 40% target share, 105 yards per game, four total TDs, 2.96, almost 3 on a yards per route run. And then one other thing, efficiency wise, I like to look at is first downs per route run. So how many times is the quarterback going to this player for first downs, driving the offense? 16%. I think anything over 10% signals something that's pretty good. So 16% so far in the season. So in a shaking start where usually you'd see maybe a quarterback go here, I've got quarterbacks got pushed down quite a bit in this draft. I'm going wide receiver with Jordan Tyson here. I think him, maybe a couple other guys are battling out there for wide receiver 1. But this is one of those players where I was kind of high-ish. He was a tier 2 guy for me coming in. And so far, the numbers throughout the season have kind of lived up to that. And so, you're kind of confirming what you were hoping would happen. And there's not many of that. There's not many of that happened this year. So I kind of pushed him up a little bit. So that's my first player, Jordan Tyson.
Love it. And just to maybe put into perspective for the audience, if we look at, say, like last year's draft class or even the one before, what kind of wide receiver did you have in that tier 2? Obviously, maybe not people like your Ted McMillans, who you maybe expect to be up in that tier 1, but what kind of receiver are we looking at that would have sat in that tier 2 ranking for you just last year or the year before? Sorry if you don't have it right in front of you right now, Jeff. It is a hot seat after all.
I'm pulling it up. Nice. So tier 1 was Emeka Egbuka for me.
Yep.
And I'm sorry. Excuse me. Tier 1 was Ted McMillan for me. That was when I came on the hot seat. That was the guy that I picked first every time. Then tier 2 was a grouping. I have Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, Travis Hunter, and Matthew Golden in there. So that he would fit somewhere in there. If you remember, Emeka Egbuka was a guy when we were sitting in the end of 2023 trying to put wide receivers in the 2024 class. I was trying to put Emeka Egbuka in there and getting made fun of a lot. And then it comes out the 2025 and the same thing. I was putting Emeka Egbuka at pick 3, pick 4 on the TDR mock drafts. And we were just kind of getting laughed at because it was early in the season before people really knew who he was going to be. And then turns out in 2025, it works out from that perspective. But sorry to go down that tangent. It's just, I know on this particular show, we've talked about Emeka Egbuka ad nauseum
several times.
That's the point. So that tier 2, that grouping is kind of where I'd have Jordan Tyson. So not in my tier 1 of Ted McMillan, and the only other player I had tier 1 last year was Ashton Jeanty, but not in that tier 1, but pretty decently high in that tier 2 grouping. I think I'm higher than most on Luther Burden, and so far that hasn't played out. But the Emeka Egbuka, Travis Hunter kind of grouping is kind of where I'd think about Jordan Tyson.
Yeah, so he's keeping good company there.
Not at all about play style. I'm just talking about where he kind of would rank in my process.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's definitely keeping good company, especially the way Igbuka has started. Hey, when we get you on next year, we'll find a way to talk about Igbuka again. I'm sure we'll have to shoehorn him in every episode, Jay. We'll make sure to chat about him. So we got Jordan Tyson in there
Yeah.
at 1. Who's right behind him at the 102?
Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
He's a running back for Notre Dame. He's 6 foot, 206 pounds, so very, very big profile there. He's a year 3, so he's going to be an early declare if he comes out this year. There's lots of things to like about his profile. So far on the season, 64 yards per game, actually 104 scrimmage yards per game. He's not particularly off to like a great, incredible start from a
No.
data perspective. He's not like above thresholds for the things that I look at from like a market share or years of experience thresholds or any of those, or like the advanced stuff like yards after contact, missed tackles forced per attempt, elusive rating, those kinds of things. He's not meeting those thresholds yet. So this is one of those guys where, you know, he was probably my highest rated player coming into the season.
Yeah.
But it was somebody I was warning people about, like the profile is not perfect. There's holes in this profile. My hope is that we see some resurgence or some like dominance here coming from him for the rest of the season, because I need to see that. Now, if he kind of mids his way through this season and it's not perfect, but there's like some things to like, then yeah, maybe, you know, you still are somewhat excited about this player in this lackluster class, but maybe there could be players that jump him. So far, we haven't had the crazy season out of Jeremiah Love that you would have hoped to have seen, like you were having last year with Ashton Jeanty or Marion Hampton or some of these other guys. And you can't have that every single year. But the hope was this guy coming in being your RB1, that we see something jumped up. We see that stair step of the progression of like getting better and better and better. And that still can happen. We're only 3 weeks in. That still can happen, but we haven't quite seen it. Still, in this class where I'm not seeing that great of prospects, I still am holding out hope and have him in the second spot here, even though you haven't quite seen it on the field quite yet. But still, he's averaging 104 scrimmage yards per game. That's not nothing. That's still good. It's just not the crazy stuff that we were hoping to see so far, and that still might come. So yeah, number 2, Jeremiah Love.
I don't know if this. I can't think of a better place to put this question. It's not necessarily linked to Jeremiah Love. You kind of brought up his production right away. The last 2 years, I've had one sort of glaring mistake in both of those years based on the tape that I've watched and the production that I've seen out of players. And that was 2 years ago. We had the running back out of Missouri who have just Cody Schrader. And then last year, Xavier Restrepo. Both had incredible numbers, incredibly high production for their teams. And both went undrafted and are struggling to cling on to NFL teams. How does that happen when a player like that gets such amazing production, unlike a guy like Jeremiah Love, but then they still can't make an NFL roster where someone maybe has less production, but they see like a Matthew Golden, they maybe see that in someone and they take him. I can't wrap my head around. I'm trying to fix that and not have one of those this year.
Yeah, the quality and level of play, I think, goes into it. And just like if you're going from high school to college, there's a significant jump in skill level and just natural ability. And you know, you can have players that dominate in high school and then go to college, and maybe they go up a tier or go to some different level, and they can't even be the third stringer on some teams. And so I think you have to marry the stats also with the like potential of the player. And a lot of times you see that sort of in draft capital and in or draft capital expectations, and in the quality of competition. So, you know, like we'll have adjustments sometimes in numbers based on like sort of what conference you are. Are you a Power 5 guy or are you a MAC guy? Can you produce a significant amount of volume on Akron? And then if you took that same player and then put him on Ohio State's team, would he even crack the starting lineup? And I think you run into a lot of that in college. You just have to be careful that not all stats or just the accumulation of accounting stats translate then to stats in the NFL. I think you have to also marry that with how the NFL views him, and then sort of the physical profile to the person. Does he have like an NFL style and NFL playing ability going forward? And so you'll find that like a Cody Schrader, who has all the heart in the world, can go to a place and based on, maybe not having the physical NFL physical skills, but being just good enough to operate and put up a whole bunch of stats in that college program against maybe lesser competition or at times even great competition, but game planned well. That's sort of the difference, I think.
Yeah, it's something I'm really going to try and focus on this year and try and wrap my head around it a little bit more. And you mentioned Derek. I know we need to move on to one to mention Derek Henry. I've seen something recently. Derek Henry's been in the NFL, coming on like nine years or so, still has not surpassed his rushing yards from high school, which is crazy. I mean, you just imagine you're like a 16-year-old kid waking up and having to play against Derek Henry. Like, it's just not fair. It's just not fair. But we'll move on to the 103. So you got Tyson and Love locked in. Who's coming up next?
Yeah, the next one is Mekhi Lemon. This will be a surprise to people. Mekhi Lemon is a wide receiver at USC. This is his third year. He's 5'11", 190. I think this year USC has been off to a really hot start. Both wide receivers, I think, should be considered for these kinds of drafts in Mekhi Lemon, and maybe hopefully we talk about Jacoby Lane a little bit later. But USC, like I said, Jaden Maavia and the wide receivers and even the running back have been a upside surprise this season. They haven't played anybody great, but if you're looking at all the numbers and the stuff that I look at, like EPA per play and all this stuff, USC's look really, really good. And so that one's been a really surprise to me. I think Mekhi Lemon's playing himself into a discussion of should I want Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson, honestly, at wide receiver 1.
Nice.
And so it's to me, it's getting closer and closer. And if he keeps this up, this trajectory up, I think that's part of the discussion we're going to start having. I'm excited about his upside. So far in the season, 26% target share, 104 yards per game. I mentioned Tyson was a 3 yards per route run. Mekhi Lemon's a 5 yards per route run. And then I mentioned Tyson was a 16% first downs per route run. Mekhi Lemon is 17.5 first downs per route run. Just having a really, really good season. Now, Tyson has 40% share of Arizona State's offense. Mekhi Lemon, only 26%, and he's doing all this with it. So, I'm excited to see what it is. Obviously, with the 5'11", 190 profile, it's not like short. We're not talking about 175 here or anything in terms of pounds, but just that gives you an idea of what kind of play style he can be, from that perspective. So I'm excited about USC, what they've done this season. I know their schedule is going to get tougher. You're going to see like our true test of what they can do actually, but Mekhi Lemon is a huge riser from this season and pushed him up to the third spot here.
Do you think he's really benefited from Zachariah Branch moving across from USC and transferring?
Yeah, that'll be like something to be studied, honestly, because you had Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson. Deuce Robinson, who transferred to Florida State, who's had some an absolute incredible game the other week. Then you had Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane all in the same wide receiver room.
Yeah.
And clearly, Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson, I guess, like they thought that Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane were going to be the guy, so they went on and found their spots. And And yeah, Makai Lemon last year was putting up some good numbers from an experience adjusted basis as well. So like
Mm.
year 1, year 2, those certain thresholds you're looking at. So he was seeing a little bit of that last year as well. So I don't know if it's necessarily just Zachariah Branch moving on. I think Zachariah Branch needed to move on to find a spot for himself because
Yeah.
Makai Lemon was way outperforming him at USC.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Can't wait to watch a little bit more of USC. Phil told me last week I need to watch a bit more of USC, so I've been doing that a wee bit. So look, can't wait to see more of Makai Levin. He's at 3. Who's right after him at 4? You mentioned the quarterbacks are sliding. Do we see one yet? Do we wait off a little bit?
No, we're not. And we'll get into that discussion, but
Yeah.
I think right now I'm not taking the chance on the quarterbacks. I'm going to sneak one in here that might be a little bit of a surprise to you, but it's a little bit further
Okay.
down. So,
Okay.
okay. Number 4, Carnell Tate, wide receiver at Ohio
Mhm.
State.
Yep.
I've been a little down on his profile just because he's in a crowded room. Jeremiah Smith outshined him. Emeka Ibuka outshined him. Marvin Harrison Jr. outshined him. But the limited production that we do get, it looks nice.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of we're taking one side of the coin and the other side of the coin. Now, he's not like necessarily this high volume guy. He doesn't play slot, the traditional
Mhm.
OSU slot wide receiver that we've seen that's succeeded really, really well. Emeka Ibuka, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah.
He's an outside guy. He's 6'3", 191 pounds. He's a big play guy. He is getting a little bit more share this year. It's 18% target share. I would love to see that be a little bit higher, but it
Mm.
translates to about 73 yards per game, 3.32 yards per route run, 12%. Remember, we're looking for 10%, 12% first downs per route run. And the one thing that I like looking at EPA per play, if there's one metric out there that I really, really like, is EPA. You can look at it for quarterbacks. You can look at it for wide
Mhm.
receivers, tight ends. You can look at it for on a team basis, team offense team, defense team. I really like that metric. You clearly for the wide receivers, I'm going to look at volume. I'm going to look at efficiency, but EPA per play, he's 6 so far on this season. So having a good season. I would
Mm.
love that target share to come up, but right now, from the efficiency perspective, it's looking pretty good. When Ibuka moved on, we knew Jeremiah Smith's going to be the guy. He gets
Yeah.
a lot of the targets, gets a lot of the focus of the offense is there. Last year, you had Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka was kind of like the second guy, and then
Yeah.
Carnell Tate was kind of like that third guy. But he made some plays. He
Yeah.
was a big
Yeah.
play. He made some decent plays, plays down the field. Emeka Ibuka moving on. You have Brandon Inniss come in, fill in the slot, and then you have this new tight end from Purdue named Max Clare come in. Now, Clare has some NFL upside too. So the thought was that Ibuka's share kind of gets split up between Max Clare, Brandon Inniss, and Carnell
Yes.
Tate. I'd love to see Carnell Tate just work his way into getting more and more of that share. So it doesn't just look good on the efficiency. He also has that third year breakout from a volume perspective, and that would make me get much higher on him. But right now, fourth in this draft in a class where I'm not really certain about a lot of these players.
Yeah. Do you ever try, because I know you obviously compile all of your stats and do a great job with your system. Is there ever any like asterisks go next to some players, for example, if Cornell doesn't quite get the target share that you think you might want, but there is the big Jeremiah Smith asterisk there, like you're just like, well, of course Jeremiah Smith's going to eat up so much of that. Do you ever do that, or are you like, no, the system is the system, it has to stay that way?
I think every data point deserves a story and
Yeah.
deserves an explanation. And I do think that the asterisks sometimes are relevant. I think a lot of times you try and explain stuff away and it doesn't make sense to. I think there are
Mm.
certain exceptions, like that crazy Alabama wide receiver room, or what seems to be OSU's wide receiver room each year,
Yeah.
where you have like you really star caliber players not playing much their first 2 years. And when my model looks at it, it weighs the production in years 1 and 2 much higher
Mm.
because I want players that outperform when they're young. I think you do have to kind of tell a story about why potentially that might not have happened. And if it does make sense to make an asterisk, sometimes you can do that. I think OSU's wide receiver room is an asterisk because of Jeremiah Smith.
Hmm.
I think that's like an
Yeah.
exceptional player.
Hmm.
It's like maybe if Julio Jones, who dominated or something like that in college,
Yeah.
like you're playing with somebody that's just different and special, and
Yeah.
so you have to like just make those considerations. But I don't think anything is black and white. I always think that you need to look at what underpins data, and maybe there's a story to make exceptions for or not. But largely I try to stay within the bounds and not make too many exceptions if I can.
Love that. What a brilliant answer. What a brilliant answer, Jeff. Thank you so much. So we got that locked in at 1 4. That's 3 wide receivers in the first 4 picks. Who's coming up with pick 5?
Yeah, next one is Jonah Coleman, running back
Yeah.
out of Washington.
Hmm.
This is one of those where I liked him coming into the season. He
Hmm.
produced really well. The hope was this season that he goes off. The part that always confuses me about Jonah Coleman is the draft capital aspect. And what
Hmm.
I haven't seen is I haven't seen NFL evaluators, those mock drafters or any of those guys buy in really hard on Coleman yet.
Mm.
And what I worry is sort of what we were talking about before, a guy that produces really well, but then doesn't get valued highly in the NFL. But in terms of this season, he's kind of going off.
Oh yeah.
So what the hope is that then this leads into I can see him on the NFL field. These mock drafters, these NFL evaluators look at him, and he's going to get draft capital. For me, that's running backs. That's round 1, 2, and 3. Is he going to get fit into there? That's really important to me, and I think if he continues at this pace, he'll probably get in the second or third round. So that's kind of where this comes from here in terms of putting him as high as fifth and the second running back overall. He's 5'9", 229. He's built.
Yeah.
I don't know what the kids say these days, but that's kind of what he is.
Yeah.
He's a year 4 guy so far. He's second in yards per game with 144 yards. He's first in scrimmage yards per game with 167 yards. So the difference between scrimmage and yards per game is the receiving. So he's got some extra receiving yards. He's first in yards per team play at 2.21. He has a strong dominator rating, and he's the fourth in PFF rush grade this season of the qualifiers. I screen out some stuff, so I'm just trying to get the main players in here, not the guy that goes for one run and has a really good
Mhm.
PFF grade. I'm screening that stuff out. So really good season to start. And you know what? Coming into the season, we thought this would happen. So I don't want to double count it, but
Yeah.
we thought going into the season that he was going to perform really well. The head coach was going to push the ball through him. He was going to be the focal point of this offense. So we know this was going to happen. And you don't want to double count it, but I think you got to be excited about some of these guys that are performing well so far. And then the
Yeah.
hope is that then also then translates to the NFL evaluators then pushing them up their boards and seeing how does this guy translate then to the NFL, and hopefully that then translates into good draft capital.
Well, I'm trying to think what my sixth graders would say. You were saying, what would the kids? I think maybe they would say he's cracked. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Jay. I'm
Oh
still
no,
learning their lingo. They mostly just
it's
say six,
thick,
seven all the time. It's really annoying.
thick.
So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, thick, cracked. Yeah, that. But they just
yeah.
mostly just say 6, 7 all digits, and it's
Okay.
not annoying at all. So let's speak of six. Let's move on to 106. We're gonna get real excited for the next 2 picks. We got 6 and 7 coming up. Who's next at pick 6?
Pick six. This is my first quarterback, and
Hey.
it's not going to be a guy that most people think of. This is going to be Dante Moore, quarterback,
Ooh.
Oregon.
Not, I did not
Um,
know that he was eligible this year, actually, because I've been impressed
yeah,
with what I've seen from him. I thought that he was going to be a 27 guy, but he can come out in 26. That's exciting.
Yes, he's available for this year. His first year he started at UCLA. It was kind of in and out. Then he transferred to Oregon last year and sat behind Dylan Gabriel, and so this is his third year. So so far on this, well, he's 6'3", 210, so he fits the physical profile. His third year, so if he comes out this year, it'll be early declare. So far in the season, he has an 81% adjusted completion percentage, about 219 pass yards per game. He has an 85.7 QBR, which is pretty high. There's some 90s still in there on the season, but he's kind of up there. PFF pass grade's an 82. The one that sticks out to me is first so far in EPA per play of all the quarterbacks, of all the relevant quarterbacks this year. A great adjusted yards per attempt this season of 11.8. A great big time throw percentage of around 6%, and a really low turnover worthy play percentage of 1.4%. So sort of meeting all the things, kind of an early declare. The things that I think are important: QBR, EPA per play, adjusted yards per attempt, those types of things, he looks good on. He got a little playing time, a little starting time his first year. So it's not just like, coming out of nowhere type of thing. He even played a little bit last year as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, but this year it's coming together. He's playing for an Oregon team that has weapons all around him. Some really nice freshman running back, a really nice freshman wide receiver, and some experience at wide receiver and pass catcher. A great tight end, really athletic tight end, in Kenyon Sadiq.
Yep.
He's got the weapons in a conference where I think he can do some damage. And so I like what Dante Moore's put up so far this season. And that there's lots of talk about these different quarterbacks, like who should go, who's up there. Dante Moore is not the guy you see drafted in the first round by the mock drafters. He's more like fourth round type of guy, but I think the trajectory is up here. I think people are going to start seeing what he can do, and I think they're going to start pushing him up. So Dante Moore as my QB1 so far in this mock draft.
I love that. Dante Moore, guy that just recently made my sort of weekly list of college players that I put out on X every single week. If you're not following over on there, make sure you go check it out. Dante Moore, I was impressed. I'll just read you up the stats. I was impressed with he used all levels of the field. Showed some nice play action in the last game as well, and some decent arm strength as well. That's the week 2 numbers I've seen from Dante Moore. So hopefully that continues. I love that he's in as your QB1. Let's go to pick number 7. See where you go next.
All right, next one. This is one that hasn't been performing as well, but we're kind of going with priors here, and we're going to hold on to maybe sort of a talent level in Nick Singleton, running back, Penn State. Yeah. Currently, actually, from a full numbers perspective, is kind of actually getting outperformed by his backmate Katron Allen, which has been sort of back and forth because these guys came to college at the same time.
Yeah.
Both performed stats wise. Year 1, Nick Singleton had some injury. Year 2, maybe wasn't quite right. At the end of year 3, he was showing himself as an incredible wide receiver outlet for Drew Aller and Penn State, racking up some decent wide receiver production. That's continued here into year 4. Where it feels like he's getting, the 14 yards per game, where Katron Allen, and from a receiving perspective, is getting like 1 yard per game, maybe 1 or 2. So he has that sort of the unique physical NFL build and play style. And you marry that with the pass catching ability. There's still some things to hold on to here in this profile. The problem is it hasn't looked pretty, other than like him showing his pass catching ability. It's just not like really that great. It's very middle of the pack, if not like a little bit lower than middle of the pack in terms of this data stuff that I look at. So this is one of those ones where you see all the talent. He's got the NFL buy-in. I think people are excited and want him to do well, which makes it easier because, if he does well, you don't have to like also then make the case for draft capital on top of that. Like maybe for a Jonah Coleman, he's gonna get the draft capital if he does well. So that's the point where you got to weigh what's happening now versus what potentially could be. And I think Nick Singleton still deserves it. Now I'm not taking him, above any of those wide receivers. But we're talking about the 7th pick here, going with another running back.
It feels wild for me to say this. It's definitely way too early. But why do I feel like this is already someone I'm like, it's going to be landing spot dependent in the draft for Nick Singleton?
It might be. The thing that you can hold your hat on is he has the ability to be great.
Yeah.
It's just we haven't seen it in the numbers. And so when you talk about like talent and landing spot, if he lands in the wrong spot and it doesn't, they don't take advantage of what he can have, or they don't see it, or they don't give him the extra opportunities or whatever, then you can see there might be a problem. Because he's this year it's 60 yards per game, 74 scrimmage yards per game. Like it's not perfect, but my hope is that what we saw the end of last year, we start seeing again this year, and he starts getting those efficiency numbers. You start seeing him break some bigger plays, and Penn State starts rolling. Because I think Penn State's a good team. I think they're legitimately a good team. But you would really love to see them start, racking up some points here at some point.
Yeah, I agree. You need a big performance out of them for sure. And he's locked in at 1-7, 1-8. Who are you thinking?
We're gonna go Eric Singleton Jr., a wide receiver out of Auburn. This is his year 3. He's a transfer from Georgia Tech. He's 5'11", 190. He's so far on the season's 50 yards per game, 20% target share in a crowded Auburn wide receiver room, playing with Jackson Arnold. But Cam Coleman's there. And so, this guy has some special abilities with the ball in his hand. At Georgia Tech, sometimes he would get the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and he just has that sort of it factor in terms of movement, in terms of getting extra yards and getting to the play. About a 3 yards per route run, a 14% first downs per route run, and a really nice reception yards per team pass event and EPA per play so far in the season. I do think he has buy-in from the draft community. I think that people are excited about his profile. Now, is he that like alpha wide receiver 1, that 6'4", 200-pound guy that you want to spend really high draft capital on from an NFL team? His teammate might be, but that's next year. No, he's not that guy. Yeah. But can he be used in the NFL and be your wide receiver 2? And is he special with the ball in his hands? Yes.
Yeah.
And so it takes, I think your comment about like situation, it takes a good situation. He has to be in the right spot and used right. But I think he could be special. I don't know if he goes in the first round, second round, third round, but I do think he gets first through third round draft capital. So still comfortable taking him here. Not like my typical profile, but he's looked pretty good in years 1 and 2. So it's not like it's just like this 1 year wonder of you get a transfer and it's a shoot up or whatever. I think he's good enough to be an NFL player. So take him here at 8.
Feels like one of those guys that as soon as we get closer to the draft, things are going to start heating up. People are going to be like, this is he feels like a my guy kind of player, like where people are just going to latch on and be like, yeah, that's my guy. So hopefully he does well the rest of the year, can get that first round or even second round draft capital. So let's move on to 1-9 as we fire towards the end of the first round. Jay, where are you going with 1-9?
We're starting to get into the range where like this 8, 9, 10, all the way through the middle of the second round, you can make a case for one or the other. I got a whole bunch of players here that I'm liking that I could put in here. Number 9, I'm going to go with Denzel Boston. He's a big wide receiver out of Washington. 70 yards per game. Yeah, 30% target share this year, 2.29 yards per route run, and 13% first downs per route run. like he's just that big wide receiver. This is a year 4 for him, so he's not an early declare, but
Mm.
there's lots of things to like about his earlier years as well. I think he can be that outside wide receiver in the NFL. This is one of those years where I think I just would love to see him get the volume and the accounting numbers up so that that draft capital can push up a little bit higher. But I'm excited about him. There's not much of a difference between Denzel Boston and my guy at pick number 10, who's going to be Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver at Alabama.
Nice. Yeah.
He's a little bit smaller. He's 6'1", 209, but it's so a little bit thicker from that perspective. He's also a year 4 guy. He played in Washington and then followed his head coach from Washington to Alabama. Last year, we thought Jeremy Bernard was going to have a breakout year at Alabama, and he did not have that year. But this year, he's having a pretty good year. 92 yards per game, 19% target share in a room where Ryan Williams is playing. And Ryan Williams, he was injured 1 week, and 1 week he went off. So it's a little early to be like marking, how much share it is, but about 19-20% share, 2.86 yards per route run, which is higher than Denzel Boston. Similar first downs per route run, great reception yards per team play, great EPA per play. So like Jeremy Bernard is having a breakout year in this year. I think people are getting excited about what he could be in the NFL. This being his 4th year with both of these guys, Denzel Boston and Jeremy Bernard, being a bit bigger. I think the NFL could be excited about these guys. It's hard for me to pick between the two, honestly.
Yeah.
So I just kind of group them together and kind of move them around together. Right now, I have them at 9 and 10.
Has Boston been at Washington all 4 years?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Jeremy
Yeah.
Bernard's the one that went from
Yeah.
Michigan State to Washington, then to
Yeah.
Alabama.
Yeah. Because I know that's another one where you kind of think you mentioned the Ohio State wide receiver room a while ago and how it could be difficult to break through. That means Boston, he would have been in that Romo Dunze, Jalen Polk, McMillan wide receiver room where it's real tough even for a year 2 guy to break into that. So again, that might be one where you could think about it, take it into account. But I've been impressed with both of those guys so far this season. So wide receiver room, while there doesn't appear to be that top tier 1 guy, we got a nice couple of tier 2 or tier 3 guys, I suppose, maybe in your list we're getting down to now as we go through the back end and we reach 111. Are you staying with wide receiver here or what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm gonna hit another quarterback here. And it's probably gonna be another one that people don't really like, or would prefer somebody else. But I gotta trust the process here. I gotta trust what the numbers tell me, past experience, all those things. So I'm gonna go with Drew Aller, QB Penn State here at the back end of the first round. Coming into the season, he was one of my only tier 2 quarterbacks. So, coming into the season, there's a lot of things to like about what he's done. So far this season, it hasn't been that great numbers wise. So, you have to weigh that again, like similar to what Nick Singleton was and some of these other guys. You have to weigh kind of how you were viewing it before the season, what the past priors were, and all that age-adjusted experience type stuff, versus what we're doing now and what it could be by the end of the year. I think Drew Aller does show some of those tools that you'd want to see that maybe you don't see out of some of the other quarterbacks. But it hasn't really shown up on the numbers for this year so far. So he's a big guy, 6'5", 235. This is his 4th year. I think Penn State's a good team. I think they'll go far and they'll be relevant come playoff time. 73% adjusted completion percentage, 208 pass yards per game. He throws a pretty impressive ball. If you listen to him in interviews, which not everybody does or hears these guys talk, a lot of times you just kind of see him play sometimes.
Yeah.
He's very smart. He knows what he's doing on the field. He's very poised, intelligent. He gives a great interview. So the question is he sort of being hampered down by the Penn State offense? They haven't had very good pass catchers for this team. They have a couple of transfers. I think the pass catchers went up like a notch, but we're still not looking at pass catchers that are at the high end of where college football is. And so, is he being hampered by the Penn State offense and James Franklin, and he's still able to put up some of these like numbers that I'm okay with? Or is it really him that's the problem? I'm not sure. I think we're going to find out when Penn State starts going through the meat of its schedule and they start playing some things. And this is the year. I mean, last year he was in consideration for being like, we were talking about he should go in this draft. He would be a first round pick. Now, like we got to see it in the numbers now for the rest of the season because he's got to work his way back into that first round range with the teams. And so far, the stats haven't backed that up this season. The hope is that then gets better and you start to back that up.
I mean, the thing with Drew Aller that I always come back to is you can just see come draft night.
Yeah.
Far away from now as we are, the words Josh Allen are going to be thrown around left, right, and center. Apart from being a big white guy, do you see any other comparisons to Josh Allen?
Yeah, it's mostly just physical comparisons.
Yeah.
But Josh Allen was not like a from the data perspective was not like great in college either.
There are clips of Bills fans furious when they drafted him, like furious. Right. Like, yeah.
So a lot of times with the QB evaluations, it's what happens in the head. And to the extent that we don't get much of a viewpoint from that perspective. I mean, we see the stats, we see like maybe leadership on the field, we see stuff like that.
Yeah.
They kind of piece together sort of a mosaic of like what that could be. And a lot of times you don't see that. You don't see the discussion between what the offense looks like, what the offensive coordinator is telling him, what the head coach is doing, the dynamics. You don't get to see any of that stuff. And that might be the stuff that might be the most important. But Aller's been a long-time starter in the Big Ten, and he's done okay. The NFL evaluators are interested in him. I don't like comparing players that might be NFL players to NFL players that are at the premium top of their position, because how many times does that not happen? So I don't think you can put them in the realm. Let's say he goes off and he's a top 5 pick for a team. He starts right away. He has a couple really good seasons. Then you could say like maybe he reminds me of a Josh Allen play style.
Yeah.
But right now you can't say Drew Aller is Josh Allen. No, that's not. We're not in the same ballpark here. No.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm already getting annoyed about it, and we're not even close to the draft. But you can just see it coming, unfortunately. So he's locked in at 111. One more pick left of the first round. Jay, who's it going to be?
Drew. We're gonna go Darius Taylor, running back, Minnesota. Unfortunately, he's been injured, but his first game he had a good game. He's 6 foot, 215 pounds. This is his year 3. He had a good first game, so it's 80 yards per game, but his second game he was only in for a couple carries before he had a leg hamstring injury. Look, this player from a volume perspective has owned Minnesota's backfield and owned a lot of Minnesota's offense for a while. I do think that volume translates to NFL. But the problem is you also need to have draft capital along that way. And this has been one of Darius Taylor's issues, is kind of like Jonah Coleman, where it just hasn't been backed up by draft capital. Guys like Mekhi Hughes this offseason were getting jumped up and getting mocked in huge draft classes in the second round. And Darius Taylor, who's way outperformed these guys, can't get out of the 4th round in a lot of people's mock drafts. So that's kind of where we sort of our discussion is, these players that have a lot of say stats, a lot of market share, a lot of volume of an offense, but then it doesn't translate to then the NFL seeing the potential out of that. What you want to have is you want to have all the volume, all the efficiency, and also the NFL, potential in terms of, high draft capital. If all that marries together, then you have a tier 1 prospect. And so far, all of these, there's holes in all of these players' profiles, but that's the problem with Darius Taylor. The efficiency stuff hasn't always been perfect with Darius Taylor, but the stuff that I like to see from a volume perspective, yards per team play, all those things have looked pretty good throughout his career. Hopefully he gets back and he starts putting up more Jonah Coleman type numbers. So we have those huge games from him, and then he starts getting discussion, but he can't do that if he's injured. This is one of those players where I'm sort of holding on to. I was kind of higher on him coming into the season, and the hope is that we start to see that buoyed up over time.
Well, I don't know about other shows and other people doing mock drafts, but on the Dynasty Hotseat, we have the best guess in the business, and we've gone 2 drafts, Darius Taylor in the top 2 rounds 2 times. So he's cool. Making waves over here on the Dynasty Hotseat, at least, where it's the only thing that really matters as well. So yeah, he's made it in the top 2 twice. Hopefully that'll continue. Jay, we can't let you get out of here without saying, are there a couple of other names maybe that you didn't quite get to? Yeah. Second round guys, maybe sleeper guys. Who's some people that you're down to talk about?
All right, I have some more names here. I'm just going to read them off real quick, and then maybe we can go into if you have any questions on any of them. So
nice.
At 2.01, I had Justice Haynes. At 2.02, I have Jacoby Lane, the wide receiver, USC. I'm sorry, Justice Haynes is running back Michigan. He's a transfer from Alabama. 2.02, Jacoby Lane, wide receiver, USC. He's a 3-year guy. I think he's got some riser potential there. Then I'm going to start hitting the quarterbacks. I got Nussmeier next, QB LSU, year 5 guy. He's got a really, really low adjusted yards per attempt, a lowish ADOT. I'm not sure if he has the potential. He's certainly got the leadership quality. He's got a competitive. He can lead that team to a win. Maybe some NFL team is going to like that. But the physical tools are something that is screaming to me. And then just sort of the numbers backing up that in terms of, how far down the field does he throw the ball really? It's so far it's not, because those LSU wide receivers, those LSU running backs are getting yards after the catch for him a lot of times.
I don't like the height he throws the ball. I noticed that a few times watching him. Something's off about the height that he's throwing the ball, where it's like his players are reaching for it. It's not quite doesn't quite work for me for Nussmeier. Sorry. Go on, finish your
well, when you're only like 6 yards down the field, I guess it's
true.
The next one's Lenore Sellers. That is just a potential from him. The red flags I've been on him this season is pressure to sack ratio and his time to throw have been way higher than it actually it meets over my red flag threshold. So I'm hoping that those pressure to sack ratio and time to throw ratios numbers come down throughout this season. But certainly there's quite a bit of upside. He's got like physical tools there that make him somebody that you can't leave off your radar. But you just gotta weigh what the bad side with the good side there. The next one's Sam Leavitt, Arizona State quarterback. I like his numbers a little bit better. I'm just hoping that he increase or he produces this year so he can get the draft capital. But I like the numbers actually out of Leavitt better than Nussmeier and Sellers so far this season or throughout their careers. The next one's Kenyon Sadiq, tight end, Oregon. That's at 2.06. I think for tight ends, I look for athleticism and draft capital. I think he's super uber athletic. A good system there in Oregon. Tight ends usually don't produce all that much unless you're Brock Bowers. So that's an interesting name for a tight end 1. I think you got to consider him. Antonio Williams, wide receiver at Clemson, slot wide receiver. He's 5'11", 190. This is his 4th year. He's had some injuries. He's currently hurt. So he's got one of those hamstring injuries. I think he's got to get out of the field. But that's somebody I'm excited about. I think he can rise, but he's, that Clemson offense has been pretty not great. So hopefully maybe you get Antonio Williams back in there and you start turning things around. Maybe he can get some stats there. But I think Antonio Williams could be a riser. Zachariah Branch, wide receiver, Georgia. So far off to a decent start here in Georgia. Certainly better than what we saw at USC. I think he's electric with the ball in the hand. I think the NFL is going to draft him at some point. Now, if he can put up a good year, maybe that's higher than what we're hoping for. But he's special. It's just you got to figure out the right way to use him. And so I think that's interesting. And then the last one I have is Katron Allen, Penn State running back. I think he looks a little bit different this year than he has in the past. I don't know if he trimmed down a little bit, but he's been running the ball better. His stats have been better than Singleton on the ground in terms of efficiency. He's got 5.5 yards after contact per attempt, a missed tackles forced rate of 0.412, which, above 3 is pretty good. Above 4 is great. A good elusive rating, a good breakout percentage. The guy is looking pretty decent in the backfield. And if you juxtaposed him with Singleton and just looking at rushing the ball, he's kind of been outperforming. Historically, I've been on the camp that Katron Allen, didn't have the same sort of athleticism and, NFL potential as Nick Singleton. But the numbers wise, we're seeing something a little different this year from Katron Allen. So I think that he's surprising. And then some just high level guys that are performing well that haven't quite made the list that I think you should watch out for. Jaden Mavia, USC quarterback. He is looking really, really good. High QBR, high EPA per play. The numbers I'm looking at look really good for him. Talon Green is looking good. He's a QB out of Arkansas. He also runs the ball. He's been looking good. Carson Beck's been all right. Sawyer Robinson's been all right. I don't know this group. If I was guessing, maybe Jaden Maavia starts pulling ahead. If USD starts pulling ahead, that's pretty interesting. At running back, Hollywood Smothers, he's been off to a pretty decent start. Jadarian Price, the other Notre Dame running back, has been interesting. A few other guys, Waymon Jordan out of USC has been good. Bryson Washington is somebody to keep an eye on always. At wide receiver, you have some big producers. Deuce Robinson, the transfer from USC to Florida State. Mario Craver, Chris Brazell have all been pretty interesting. And then at tight end, I'm still holding out hope for Max Clare. I think there can be a space for him to get some more share. OSU's been using some of their other tight ends, and for some reason they've actually got some production as well, which I thought most of that would go to Clare. So I think that could change. Jack Endries at Texas is having a pretty decent season. I think he's somebody to keep on your radar. Eli Stowers at Vanderbilt has been somebody that's on most people's radars. He's still doing well. And then Eli Raridan out of Notre Dame is producing this year. Keep an eye on him. He's almost to 91 receiving yards per game. I don't know the NFL potential quite yet. But, that's one of those perk your ears up because he's been producing way more than everybody else. I think Marlon Klein at Michigan's super athletic, and he could be a draft riser as we get closer to the draft. And good old Michael Trigg, Baylor, who was at some of the top of people's Devy boards, then fell quite a bit farther where you couldn't even trade him. You probably cut him. And this season he's coming back and producing a little bit there. So, I think the only other thing I'd mention is I didn't mention Cade Klubnik, John Mater, or Fernando Mendoza. I think Mater's fun to watch.
Yeah.
The accounting stats look really nice. It's not quite all the way up there in terms of the stuff that I'm looking at, like QBR and EPA per play. What I'd say on him is I just need more time to evaluate. I don't want to jump in all aboard yet, but I think that he could be a guy that rises up. The question is, I just don't know if he's the NFL guy.
He kind of screams fun. He screams fun backup a little bit, doesn't he?
It might, but who knows? We've had risers. We've had risers. This is only week 3. If he crushes the rest of the season, I think you have to consider him. He's not a zero in my work, so I think you gotta consider him. Fernando Mendoza, I think he's got to perform as well. I think right now is still kind of like middle of the pack for me, even though he's largely getting a lot of draft pundits to talk about him. His 2 wide receivers are doing really well this season, so he's like producing a little bit there from that perspective. But QBR, EPA play, not exactly quite what I'm looking for yet, but it could change. Cade Klubnik has been a huge disappointment for me this season. I've watched a couple Clemson games to kind of try and figure out what's going on, because he has NFL level wide receivers all over the place. What's going on in that Clemson offense? And he's running the ball a little bit more, but for the most part, he's been not great. And it's hard to determine whether that's Clemson's offense, him regressing, because last year he wasn't bad. There were some things to like about his profile from last year, and his experienced guy coming into a national contending Clemson with probably one of the better wide receivers rooms, maybe besides Ohio State, probably the second best wide receiver room, with TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, who's going off this year, Antonio Williams, Tyler Brown, all these guys. What's wrong? Why is he's low tier in QBR. He's low tier in EPA per play. He's at the bottom of the barrel, bottom quartiles in all of these stats. What's happening? And so I think at some point, when you go and look at these mock drafts with Klubnik still going first, in terms of those draft pundits, putting him at the first overall pick to the Saints or whatever, I think we have to consider that's probably going to fall. So we have to keep that in our models. We have to keep that on the top of mind, that the performance that we're seeing this year from him, it doesn't deserve first overall pick from the NFL. Now, you can in the rookie drafts, if you're all about him and you think he'll turn it around and we're just off to a slow start, sure, whatever. But is the NFL going to invest a first overall pick and all that money into him if this is the type of work that he's putting out there? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he's so far. What I've seen is I don't think he's a top 15 pick. Maybe it's later, first half. Maybe it's second round. It could be even following even more if this continues the way it is.
It is very fitting he wears orange because he has turned back into a pumpkin, if you ask me, Jay. I think he's definitely regressed to where he was 2 years ago. Sadly for Klubnik. I was almost a Klubnik guy by the end of last year, but I've gone back. I've gone back to where I was 2 years ago on him, sadly. So, Jay, also sadly, that does bring us to the end of our show. I mean, it's been a privilege once again to have you on. Jed, super quickly, can you remind everyone where can they find all your great work online?
Yeah, so I put stuff out on the Devi Royale stuff. We have a Patreon, which has its own Discord and it has content that comes through there. And we also have a Substack. You can sign up for either and get access to everything. I do college football season data, and then I also do a prospect model. You can get all of that stuff on there. We also have I also do something called the Dynasty Investor, which looks at more of the NFL dynasty stuff and trying to buy and sell players at the right time from a dynasty perspective. So I also have a spreadsheet for that. Lots of spreadsheets in my part of this contribution to the same. We also have daily written content that comes out on the Substack. And then a couple of things that I think are really cool. We have combined Dynasty Devi rankings that assigns values for each of these players. And then we've created this trade calculator. So for those of you that do play Devi and do play Campus to Canton, you can kind of the same thing you do with Keep Trade Cut or Fantasy Calc. You can plug Dynasty players and Devi players into the same trade calculator, and it'll give you what our opinions are on those things, which I think has been incredibly valuable. We've built a really good community. You see a lot of discussion in the Discord from that perspective, and so that's kind of my pitch on the Devi Real. Good group of guys that all do it.
Absolutely love it, Jay. An absolute pleasure to have you back on. Always a feather in the cap of the hot seat to know it was your first ever podcast appearance. It was on the Dynasty Hotseat. A massive feather in the cap for this show because it's been amazing what you've gone on to do, and it's been brilliant to watch your work just flourish and flourish and flourish. Privilege as always, Jay. Make sure you're watching at home, leave a nice message for Jay in the comment if you got this far, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon. But remember, for anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked in the Certified Inferno. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.